you all again in class 12 economics. We are in chapter 4 and we are discussing about the determination of income and employment. This chapter is related with chapter 2 where we have discussed about the national income accounting. There we were talking only about the gross domestic product, the production, the product value method. In this chapter we have taken up some other components like the aggregate demand and its components. And what are the two components we discussed? We have discussed about consumption and investment. We have discussed two other important terms, ex ante values and ex post values. Ex ante values means the values that are expected, planned consumption or the planned investment. Whereas when you talk about ex post, what is actually incurred there? Okay, that is called as ex post values. We have discussed various things. We have discussed the autonomous consumption, induced consumption, autonomous investment, because we say that whatever is the income, the investment does not depend on it. A certain amount is invested every year is what we have discussed. And we discussed about the two sector model. In this model, we have only two sectors, the households and the firms. Government does not have any role to play in this particular thing. Okay, so what did we discuss? We have discussed that the aggregate demand is the total of the autonomous consumption, the autonomous investment and the induced consumption. So it should be equal. The aggregate demand should be equal to the supply. And then we have discussed about the determination of equilibrium income, which is the equilibrium income. Wherever we meet the equilibrium in the aggregate demand, that particular axis, that particular coordinate is marked as the aggregate or the equilibrium income. We have discussed about the intercept form of linear equation, how it represents, how graphically the consumption function is represented, how investment function is represented, how aggregate demand is represented in the graphical method, and of course the supply side of the macroeconomic equilibrium also was discussed in detail. Then finally we went for algebraic method using a formula. How do you equalize the aggregate demand and the supply? Right, and then we spoke about the effect of autonomous change in aggregate demand on income and output. How aggregate demand change, autonomous change, that is the C dash or the I dash, how it affects the supply, how it affects the income and output of the products and services. How do you find the equilibrium? You had a formula where you have like y is equal to C dash plus I dash by 1 minus C. Using that we saw first time the income was 250. Next time it became 300. That means you have to change the aggregate demand. You have to find a new equilibrium point. When you find a new equilibrium point, you find an aggregate demand and a new income level, equilibrium income level. After that we have discussed about the multiplier mechanism, that is after a particular level, the autonomous increment. In the first round, the autonomous increment is given. The next level, what happens? The next round, the autonomous increment stays like that and it multiplies. And it multiplies itself. Right. How did we discuss this? That is when an autonomous increment is given in the investment, that means the factors of production are paid extra. When the factors of production are paid extra, it turns out to be the income of the employees. They in turn increase the consumption. When the consumption is increased, the demand automatically increases. So what the producer has to do? The producer has to produce more excessive amount to match the aggregate demand, increase the demand. When it happens, again factors of production are involved, again the investment increase, again the consumption increase, again the aggregate demand increase. Definitely the producer should go for excessive production of the products and services. This is how we studied about the multiplier mechanism and how it is fixed. Okay, this is called the multiplier mechanism and it is also called the investment multiplier. What are we going to discuss? At the end of the chapter, we are going to discuss a small point which is called as the paradox of thrift. Here what are we going to do? We are going to discuss about two different terms. One is called paradox, another one is called as thrift. Fine. Now what is paradox and what is thrift is what we are going to discuss and it is given by John Maynard Keynes. Fine. going to discuss about paradox of thrift. We are in chapter 4. First thing, what is a paradox? First thing what we have to discuss, we are going to discuss what is a paradox. It is a situation where the variables fail to follow the generally laid principles and assumptions of the theory and behave in an opposite function. So how do you define paradox? It is defined as a situation. You need to take it down, children. It is defined as a situation where the variables what happens to the variables? They fail to follow the generally laid principle. Generally you fix some principles in a two-sector model. You have fixed only households and firms should be there, and income should be like this, output should be like that. When the variables fail to follow this predetermined principles and they go on to behave in a different manner, principles and assumptions, they fail to follow the generally laid principles and assumptions of the theory. Assumptions of the theory given. Models are what? Theoretical tools of the theory, and what do? And behave. How do they behave? They behave in an appropriate function. They behave in an appropriate function. So how is a paradox defined? A paradox is defined as a situation where the variables fail to follow the generally laid principles. Now when we talk about paradox of thrift, what happens here? Thrift means what? Savings. We don't spend much. What is a thrifty thing or thrifty attitude or the characteristic talk about? We don't spend much. That is actually called as thrift. Here what do? They increase the proportion of income they save. That is, they don't spend much and they increase their savings. The total value of savings in the economy, what happens? Will not increase, it will either decline. How it should happen? The consumption should be same as what we were discussing, because based on the consumption only the demand changes. But at times what happens? They become thrifty. They don't spend much and they save much. In that condition the consumption decreases. When the consumption decreases, automatically the demand increases. When the demand decreases, the supply, if it is more, if the output is more, then what happens? In the warehouses, in the storage, you have to save more. You have to, have it as stocks. Unplanned inventories. It will become as unplanned inventory. So what happens here? In a paradox is a situation where the variables fail to follow the generally laid principle. So for us, what is the generally laid principle in this? That is, a particular consumption is done, autonomous consumption is done, or an induced consumption is done based on the income, and savings is less, is what we discuss. Savings is to a particular level. But in some cases, this fails. These variables fail, and in some situations, they fail to save much. So they fail to spend much. The consumption comes less, and they save higher. What happens to that? The entire situation changes. How is it going to affect is what we are going to discuss in this particular session. So what is a paradox? It is a situation where what do? Where the variables fail to follow a predetermined principles and assumptions of the given theory, and they behave in an appropriate way. They will change their behavior. year. Fine. What happens in paradox of thrift is what we are going to discuss. So thrift means what? Where we spend less and save more. Thrift means spend less and we save more. What happens next? We are going to discuss about the paradox of thrift. How these two things are going to be combined. So in sometimes the people of the economy may increase the proportion of income they save. That is, they increase the savings. But do you think the economy will grow because of that? The MPS of the economy will increase. The total value of savings in the economy will not increase. The total value of the economy will not increase. Instead of that, what happened? Might decline or not change at all. Okay, what is it? If the people of the economy decide to increase the proportion of their income that they have planned to save, that is, if the MPS, marginal propensity to save, increases, then the total value of savings of the economy will not increase. What happens? It might decline or remain unchanged. It remains the same. So this result is known as the paradox of thrift. How it is a paradox? Because if the savings are increased of each household, savings are increased means the economy also savings should increase. No, but they don't work accordingly. Okay, they are not directly proportionate. So what happens? It fails. That particular situation is called as the paradox of thrift. What is that situation called? Paradox of thrift. Fine, children. What are we going to discuss next? It states that as people became more thrifty, they end up saving less or same as before. So what happens? They become thrifty so that the savings also gets decreased. Right? They don't want to save much. Is what happens. How are we going to do this? We are going to discuss this. Fine. Let us continue with the example. Already what we have discussed in the first level, the income was 250. In the second level, it became 300. How is it going to change is what we are going to discuss. Now, in an expenditure pattern, there is a change in the expenditure pattern of the employees, of the people actually. They suddenly become more thrifty. They spend less. What happens? This may happen due to a new information regarding an imminent war or some other impending disaster, which makes people more circumspect and conservative about their expenditures. So we have, based on the expenditures, like the present situations, there is a war or those things which affects the economy or the society at the total, they might have a fear of spending. Like what happens if a war comes? We cannot go out for work. We need to save at that time. So their saving or their spending pattern entirely changes. How does it involve? Hence the MPS of the economy increases. That is, they spend less, but they save more. The MPS increases. How it affects the particular economy is what we are going to discuss. Or alternatively, the MPZ decreases. So what happens in this situation? The MPZ, marginal propensity to consume, decreases and marginal propensity to save increases. Right, they spend less and they save more because of some issues. Fine. How is it going to change? Alternatively, the MPZ decreases from 0.8 to 0.5. Already we were discussing that it was 0.8 only, no MPZ. We discussed in the previous example that it is given as 0.8. Now MPZ falls from 0.8, it becomes 0.5. How is it going to change everything? How is it going to affect the aggregate demand of the output is what we are going to discuss. We had two levels, right? AD1 is equal to Y1, which was 250. When there was an increase, AD2 is equal to Y2 became 300. In both the cases, MPC was 0.8. Now it falls to a level of 0.5. How is it going to affect the economy is what we are going to discuss. How do we calculate it? Imply a decrease. This sudden decline in MPC will imply a decrease in aggregate consumption spending and hence in aggregate demand. We already saw that what is your AD? How do you calculate the AD here? AD is equal to autonomous expenditure. Right. That is autonomous expenditure means what? Consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure. When the consumption expenditure changes, this also changes. Fine. It also decreases by an amount equal to what? 0.8 minus 0.5, that is into 250. How do you calculate it now? 0.8. That was earlier. Now it has decreased to 0.5 into how much? We are taking this value 250. That is 0.3 into 250, which will become 75. What has become 75 now? This value. AD3 is equal to Y3 will become 75. We are going to find the new aggregate demand and we are going to find the new income level. How are we going to do it? By an autonomous reduction. This can be regarded as an autonomous reduction in consumption expenditure to the extent that the change in MPC is occurring from some exogenous cause and is not a consequence of changes in the variables of the models. So the production was not affected. The factors of production also were not changed. Whatever we were paying for the factors of production was also same. It was done through some exogenous cause which is not related to this situation. Here what are the variables we have? We are talking about the factors of production. We are talking about the payment given for factors of production. We are talking about goods and services and the payment for goods and services. Nothing. War is not related to anything. That is an exogenous cause. COVID situation is an exogenous cause. Right. The economy has changed because of this situation. It is an exogenous cause. Okay. But as aggregate demand decreases by 75. When the demand decreases by 75, it falls short of the output, which is going to be 250. So what is actually the supply given? Supply is 250. The output is 250. What happens to the demand? The demand has fallen to 75. Find the change. So you have produced 250 units of product and only 75 units of product will be consumed. What happens to the remaining products? These are excess supply, excess output. Can you sell it? You can't sell it because the demand became less. In that case, it aggregates with the stock that you already have. It comes into the inventory. What happens? You have to reduce. In the next round, you will determine, okay, this is reduced. What do? You will make 75 less. This, when you deduct, you will get 175. Right, like this many goods will go in for saving. This will go into inventories. So what happens? The stocks are piling up in warehouses and what happens? Producers decides to cut the value of production by 75 in the next round to restore. They don't produce 250. They will produce less. By 75 if they control, 175 only they will produce because already 75 is there. Again the supply will be the same, 250 to match it. Right, already 75 is the demand shipment. So remaining you have only how many products? You have only 175 products. So if you want to get 250 as the output, you have to reduce 75. Same thing will repeat in next round. How it increase in multiplier mechanism. In each round, same way it will get detected in this mechanism. Fine. in each round they have to go for reduction in the factor payments. Because they want to produce less. When they produce less, there is a reduction in factor payments. When there is a reduction in factor payments, income gets reduced. When income gets reduced, demand again gets reduced. Falls down. Already we discussed when the income is more, demand increases and production increases. It was a cycle. This cycle is in a reverse order. The demand is less, the production will be less, income also will be less. When the income is less, the consumption again is less, again the demand will fall. This is how it goes. So when the savings increase of a particular household does not mean that the savings of the economy will increase. Instead, it will decline or it might stay unchanged. Okay, so in the next round it gets decreased again and again, it falls short and the income of the people decreases accordingly and consumption expenditure accordingly. What happens? It keeps on decreasing. So how it was earlier, children? Earlier in the multiplier mechanism, when the demand was more, what happens? When we have an autonomous investment, okay, investment increases, that means factors of production is paid more, that means the income, that is Y becomes more, it will make the consumption more. When consumption is more, demand is more. When demand is more is invested, and this is the cycle. Now what happens? The demand falls. When the demand falls, the investment falls. When investment falls, income also falls. When income falls, consumption also falls. When consumption falls, demand falls. So if you see, it is entirely the opposite way. It starts from this way and it is in a reverse order. All falls down, decreases. Okay, after a particular level, what happens? It is supposed to be finite. That is, there is no other change. You don't keep on deducting it. After a particular level, it stays convergent. Convergent means what, children? Convergent means it doesn't stay, it doesn't change. It stays limited. It stops there. Stops to change. Dwindling values is given. What do we mean by dwindling values? Decreasing values. From 250 it became 175 again, it will decrease by 75 again, by 75. So the demand keeps coming down. That is the dwindling value. Dwindling means what, children? Decreasing value. What is the meaning of the word convergent? Convergent means the change stops there. Okay, it does not continue. That is, after a particular time it stays infinite. There is no change in it. How do you calculate? Just how you calculated in multiplier mechanism. Same way you calculate the change to be 75 by 1 minus 0.5 because the new consumption MPC was given as 0.5. So you get the answer as 150. How it was? From 250. This only we take as base. From 250, when it increased, we had a new equilibrium point. Now what happened? It has decreased from 250. From 250 to 150, it has fallen down. It has decreased. Do you think we are going to have another equilibrium point? Yes, of course, we are going to have another equilibrium point which is going to be called as a paradox of thrift. We are going to have a graphical representation for this new values. Right? So what are we going to have? In the x-axis we are going to have y. In the y-axis we are going to have the aggregate demand. We are going to have a 45 degree of line. And then what are we going to have? We have to have one more. We are going to have the intersect. Right. From this only we are going to start everything. We are going to have a slope for which point? For the first aggregate demand. For this value we are going to have a point from here. If we start, it goes like this. So this point is called the equilibrium. This is what? AD1 is equal to A dash plus U y. First value. Okay, you find this equilibrium point. AD1. Now it has fallen down, right? So how your line will go? It will move down. It will have a downward slope. So like this, when it goes, wherever it meets, right? This 45-degree line, this will become your equilibrium 2. At that time, when you mark it horizontally, you will get a new aggregate demand, equilibrium aggregate demand, and you will get a new equilibrium curve. Fine, children. So there is a shift, downward shift is given. Earlier we saw that there was an upward shift. Now we have a downward swing of the AD line. So the equilibrium output and aggregate demand have declined by what? 150. Fine. So this how turns out. Now it has fallen down. Increase in savings only, but it does not help the economy. Right? This is called the paradox of thrift. What are the other two things we are going to discuss about? We are going to talk about the full employment level. We discuss the determination of income and employment also as a point. So the output in the economy also determines, the equilibrium output in the economy also determines the level of employment, because based on that only factor of production we pay, right? Based on that, based on the investment, based on the number of output. If you want to produce 250 products, then the employment will be at a level. If you are going to produce 300 products, the employment level will increase. You need more personnel. When it is decreased by 150, again it affects the employment level, where you have to send some of them out of the organization. Right, so what does it mean? This means that the level of output determined by the equality of Y and AD does not necessarily mean the level of output at which everyone is employed. You cannot, this can be called as equilibrium income, equilibrium demand, but you cannot term it as full employment. That is, you cannot say that everyone are employed in that particular situation. Right, the full employment level of income is that level of income where all the factors of production are fully employed in the production process, where they are not sent off, where they are overpowered. No. That equilibrium attained at the point of equality of Y and AD by itself does not signify full employment of resources. So when we have an equilibrium income and equilibrium demand, that doesn't mean it is in a full employment state. Fine. So we have deficient demand and excess demand. What are those things called? That is, if it is less, the equilibrium level of output is less than the full employment of output, it is due to the fact that the demand is not enough to employ all factors of production. That is deficient demand. 200 employees are there. Okay, in your organization, how many employees? 200 employees are there, and you have a demand of only 50 products. That means you are coming down of the employment. You are not employing all the people. So that means it is a deficient demand. You don't have enough demand to produce more. What is it called? Deficient demand. Whereas one more term we have, excess demand. This 150 can be termed as deficient demand, where some of them will not have work to do. And here it is increased, right? This is excess demand, where we need more people to have the level of output that we are aiming at. Fine, children. So in this session we have discussed only about paradox of thrift. We have talked about what is meant by paradox, what is meant by thrift, how paradox of thrift deals, okay, how it works, and what is paradox also we have discussed. So what is paradox? Paradox is a situation where all the variables, they fail, okay, they fail to go on with the same generally laid principles and assumptions that is given by the model, given by the theory, and they behave in a different way. Alright, so here we have discussed the situation of paradox of thrift. Means what? People, they tend to spend less and they tend to save more. It is mainly because of some exogenous causes that is not related with the firm. Okay, that does not depend anywhere regarding the demand and supply. Some other exogenous cause changes the quality of these variables, then it is called as paradox of thrift. What should we understand? If the savings of people increase, it doesn't mean that the saving of the economy will increase. Instead, it will either decrease or either it will remain unchanged. It can either decrease or remain unchanged. Fine children, so we have discussed various things. We have found a new equilibrium point. How it decreases also we discussed, and we discussed two more terms which is called as efficient demand and excess demand. The equilibrium income or the equilibrium output cannot be used to determine the employment level. Full employment level cannot be determined based on the aggregate demand or the output of goods. With this, chapter 4 is over, determination of income and employment. Go through the chapter completely. Just refer to all the videos that we have discussed in relation to this particular chapter. Answer all the worksheets that I have given in relation with this chapter. Then of course please draw a concept map of this chapter based on your understanding. After that, if you have a doubt, yes, please feel to reach me out and get your doubts clarified. In the next session, we'll be meeting with another interesting topic, which is going to be government budget and the economy. We're going to decide and discuss how budget is framed and what are the objectives of government budget. It's very easy for us to understand also. Right, it will be a very interesting topic. But before going to the next topic, I want you to thoroughly understand chapter 4. Okay, make sure you have understood everything and then we move on to chapter 5. Right children, thank you and may all have a